My name is John Moran. I'm a lawyer and a Falun Dafa practitioner. And I wanted to offer my perspective on the recent New York Times reports concerning Shen Yun. I also happen to be a longtime reader of the New York Times. I respect the newspaper, and I still think it has some great journalists who do important work under difficult conditions. So I found the recent attacks on Shen Yun especially disappointing. I want to acknowledge that it's fair for people to ask questions of Falun Dafa practitioners, and even for journalists to investigate Shen Yun. All I would ask is that if a reporter is going to write a story about Shen Yun, that it be done truthfully and fairly. And that's especially important given the background, where the Chinese government has spread hateful, anti-Falun Gong propaganda for 25 years. Practitioners in China have literally been killed in custody because they tried to tell the truth about Falun Gong. Given that background, it's inexcusable that the Times failed the basic test of honesty and fairness. And I'll give a few examples of how they did that. First, the Times printed a headline that claimed that Shen Yun enriches the founder of Falun Gong. That's simply untrue. There's no factual basis in the Times articles to support the idea that Shen Yun money went to the founder of Falun Gong. The Times seems to have made up that headline entirely, just to make Falun Gong look bad. Another example. The Times relied on accounts from a small group of former Shen Yun performers, but did not disclose that several of those performers only criticized Shen Yun for the first time after they associated with the Beijing Dance Academy, which is a competitor of Shen Yun's, which the Chinese government runs, the same Chinese government which has vowed to eradicate Falun Gong. So there's an obvious conflict of interest. For the Times to promote the accusations of such people without disclosing that obvious conflict of interest is indefensible. And the fact that the Times concealed that from its readers shows that they were not trying to report the truth in good faith. Another example. The Times described some Shen Yun skits that depict organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience in China. And the Times claimed that there's actually no evidence of such organ harvesting targeting Falun Gong practitioners, clearly implying that Shen Yun is spreading misinformation or conspiracy theories by depicting the organ harvesting. But the truth is there is evidence of organ harvesting targeting Falun Gong practitioners, where Falun Gong practitioners have been killed to support China's organ transplant industry. I know because I've studied that evidence quite carefully. In fact, a former New York Times reporter has testified publicly that based on her initial investigation, she believed the Chinese government was killing prisoners of conscience for their organs. But her editors at the Times would not allow her to continue with the story. So the Times deliberately chose not to investigate the organ harvesting story, even when one of its own reporters was onto it, and now recklessly says there's no evidence of organ harvesting. There is evidence. The Times just chose to look away from it. One more example. The Times claimed, again relying on the accounts of former Shen Yun performers who have an obvious conflict of interest now, that Shen Yun discourages performers from receiving necessary medical treatment. Well, there are a lot of medical records that disprove that accusation. The Times just refused to give Shen Yun time to get patient authorizations and collect the medical records from the providers. Several doctors have come forward to say that they practice in the area near Shen Yun's campus, and they treat Shen Yun performers all the time. Even one of the former performers who spoke with the Times told the reporters in an email that most Shen Yun performers receive regular medical care. The Times didn't include any of that in its articles. Why would the Times conceal all of that information from its readers? I think what's clear is that the Times wanted to print sensationalized stories that made Shen Yun look as bad as possible, and they were willing to sacrifice truthfulness and basic journalistic integrity in order to do so. The last matter that I want to comment on is the Times' failure to offer any perspective from the hundreds of former Shen Yun performers who warmly remember their time at Shen Yun, or for that matter, to give voice to the millions of Falun Dafa practitioners around the world. Why do so many people practice Falun Dafa? Why do all of those Shen Yun performers, and many others, devote themselves to carrying the message of Falun Dafa. The truth is that Falun Dafa has brought good health and miraculous experiences and deeper meaning in life to millions of people around the world. There are amazing stories that could be told about that would be more interesting and informative than anything the New York Times wrote, and that would have the benefit of being true.